Hello everybody, and welcome to this section where we will code our command and control center. Now before we begin, let us explain what the command and control center is, or as should I say, the threaded server. Now as you can see here I have our server code from the previous sections where we simply just got our shell back and we started executing some of the functions right after we created the socket object and right after we binded the port and listened for the incoming connections. Now the server, basically the principle, is similar to this, or not similar, it is rather the same to this, just we are not accepting one connection, we are going to accept multiple connections to our server, and we will be able to manage multiple sessions with different targets at the same time. What we will do is we will code a simple command control center, which will have a while true loop inside a while true loop, where we will have a certain outline part where we will code the commands for the center itself, and then we will just paste the shell function from here as the inner while true loop, which will be referring to a single connection if we want to communicate with a single target at a time. We will also code a function which will be able to send multiple commands, which will be able to send one command to multiple targets at the same time. Now the reason why we need this, basically that is the principle behind the DDoS attacks. If you send to multiple targets at the same time to ping a certain target, then all of them will at the same time send packets to the target, which will make the target crash. Now the more PCs you have, the easier this will be, but for now on we are not really learning how to run a DDoS attack, since there is really no point in learning that. It is rather simple, and basically you shouldn't be doing it unless you have the permission to do so. But what we are teaching right here is how you can actually accept multiple connections to your PC. So let us see how that will look like. I have Paint right here, and you can see in our server, the first thing we do once we set up the actual socket is we actually waited for the target and IP in order to accept that. What we will do in our actual threaded server is, let's say this is our Kali Linux machine right here. Such a bad drawing, but doesn't even matter. This is our Kali Linux machine, and it takes the connection from, let's say, two different PCs at the same time. So this is PC A and this is PC B. Oops. What we will try to implement in our code is a function which will accept the connections, such as the server function from our server video. It will basically use the socket.accept function from the socket library in order to accept the connection, but we will run that server function in a thread. So we will try to run it the entire time. And as soon as someone connects, we will create a list. First list will be a list of actual socket objects, which will be a socket object from, let's say, the first one that connects is the PC A, and then the second one that connects will add to a list its socket object, which will be PC B. Then we will have a list, which we will name, for example, targets or something like that, containing these socket objects. And another list we will have in order to contain the IP address from those socket objects. So IP from the actual A PC, and the next one, once B connects, we will have the IP address and the port from the actual PCB. Now this list right here, the second one, only we need in order to determine and differentiate different targets. So we want to have their IP addresses, and we want to know from where the connection is coming from and to who are we actually connecting to. While as the first list, we will use to enter the shell function, which will allow us to communicate with one target at that certain time. So let us see what we need to do. Basically, as I said before, we will have to code two different options for our center. One of them will be, for example, we will call it Q, as in the previous server, but that Q function will not close the connection, it will just close the connection from the center in order to connect to a different PC. You will still be able to access that other PC even though you specified Q to close the actual shell. You will be able to just select it whenever you want and connect to it whenever you want. So that would be about it for the introduction. Now, of course, if you don't understand it at the moment, don't worry, you will understand everything in great details as we go through the code. So that would be about it for this introductory video. Hope you enjoyed it and take care. Bye.